People will finally stop asking me how to open their hangar. Maybe. 07 Star Citizens, hope everyone's having a fantastic day. Invictus is fast approaching, so I hope you're all getting your wish list sorted for whatever ships you might want. So I've been making some videos about the additions of 319, but there's one in particular that isn't really as drastic of a change, but is going to mean a lot for new players coming into the verse. If you have ever invited a friend into Star Citizen, or perhaps you remember your first time in Star Citizen, you realize how much of a pain the first 30 minutes to an hour can be. You will constantly question, how do you get to your hangar? How do you pull your ship out? How do I make UEC? How do I stop falling through elevators? Well, last year, CIG let us know on the public roadmap that they have something in mind for that, and they're calling it the new player experience. Essentially what this boils down to is it's kind of the precursor to a tutorial. So let's talk about what they've added into 319 for the new player experience, which actually has a couple of different elements to it. The first is a roughly 30-minute mission that takes you through a lot of the basics, and they have heavily updated their hints system. We'll start with the mission, as that's what most people will start with when they first log into the game. When you first log in and you go to the menu, you're going to be asked if you want to play the tutorial. This is then going to set your home location at Area 18, and when you load in, you're going to end up in the Habs. As a quick side note about location, I do hope that they bring this entire system to other cities. It feels like it wouldn't be too hard to implement, so hopefully sometime soon we'll see this at New Babbage, Lawville, and Orison. From the moment you load in, you will automatically basically have a mission tied to you, as well as you'll be seeing the hints on your right side. At the very beginning, it takes you through the very, very basics of getting out of your bed, how to use the interaction mode, eating, drinking, even how to use an elevator. Once you do go through the elevator, it also teaches you how to go purchase items. However, this is the first thing as part of this whole system that I think needs a couple of things added to it. I don't think that they go in depth enough about how the inventory system works or really how the shopping system works. This is an incredibly integral part of the game, being able to swap out weapons, items, being able to buy new weapons and items. All they really do is just tell you how to go into the terminal. Even just like a shorthand of you can change the location of where you're sending the items to, like a ship that you've got out or the local area. But I feel like most of this could probably be handled with a tooltip. And the inventory management itself, they don't really go into. At no point did I see them talk about equipping a helmet, which is an incredibly important thing in Star Citizen. I'm sure most people have horror stories of themselves or their friends going out into space without a helmet and wondering why they died, and just assuming it was a bug, when in reality they just didn't know they weren't wearing a helmet. So in the next iteration of this, hopefully we get a little bit more of that information. After we're done at Cubby Blast, it's off to get our ship. Now, I do like how they've put all the little mission markers around, as well as they've put new signs around Area 18 to make it a little bit easier to navigate, so that's a really, really nice touch. However, I do think that we get to this stage a little bit too early. It'd be nice if we had a little bit more of a guided tour around ArcCorp that showed us the ship shop, the hospital especially, that's an important one, and probably even the TDD, just showing us how trading can be done. As you step onto the tram, you get to experience the brand new volumetric clouds over ArcCorp, which are really nice. It's just visually very appealing, so it's good to have that be brought into the same patch as the new player experience. I think it's just going to add that little bit extra for new players. So once arriving at the spaceport, we then get to learn about how to retrieve our ship. Now, once again, there's something else I would like to see here, which is the rentals terminal. One thing that I recommend to all new players is that before they buy new ships, to rent them if they can. And I think that's something that a lot of players do in fact do. They want to try them out. It'd be interesting if you were either forced to rent a ship at 0 UEC and you could use that as your initial ship, or just a very, very basic overview of here is the terminal and here is how you rent. Once again though, this is a very small thing that they could add. I don't think they necessarily need to add it in, but I feel like it would be a bit of a better touch. You'll notice as you do go to the terminals, they actually do have a rented Pisces to use, so you don't have to use one of your own ships. I don't necessarily like this. I would much prefer that you learn how to fly your very first flight on the ship that you bought, right? On your starter package ship, on your Aurora or Mustang, whatever it might be. I do, however, like the fact that they locked it to one ship. So you may have some players that bought a new package as start of theirs, or they've got, you know, a referral reward, so they've got extra vehicles, but you don't really want to overwhelm them with that sort of information. So big fan of it being just one ship that you can do the tutorial on, but much would prefer it to be your actual starter pack ship. The instructions to retrieve your ship and go down to your hangar are very simple, very easy to follow, which is great. Even to the point of, opening up the doors, opening up the hangar, bringing your landing gear up. It's all very straightforward. And that's another one of those things that you hear constantly from new players is, well, I got in my ship and then I blew up in the hangar. I didn't know you had to open the doors. I have heard that way more times than I feel like I should have. So then you get out of the hangar and you have to do kind of this like maneuvering tutorial. So this is just teaching you the basics of flight, shift to accelerate, spacebar to go up, control to go down, those sorts of things. And I do think they do a solid job of this section, but I would love to see as part of this section, either seeing a really big ship like a Starfarer or a Reclaimer flying around you, or maybe flying through the towers or some other obstacle, just to make it a bit more wow factor so that people can really be drawn in even during the tutorial. Imagine during the tutorial, you do see a Reclaimer flying past you. That would get me really, really excited for, hey, that's the future. I could work towards that ship. Another thing I think they're missing during this maneuvering section is I feel like it would be possible to tell us what all of the screens mean. We have things like the power triangle, which are very integral to flight, that doesn't get touched on, and that we do want to know about, that, you can get extra shield power, extra boost, that sort of thing. At the same time, Master Modes is coming later this year, so it might be better to wait for that before we introduce those sorts of changes. But it's definitely something the new players need to learn, and at the moment, the only way that they really can learn that is by either experimenting or YouTube tutorials. When you finish the maneuvering section, you get to do your first quantum flight over to Bajini Point. Now this section is absolutely fantastic. It goes into a really nice amount of detail without overwhelming the player about how to quantum and then how to request landing. Once you're on Bajini, it's basically over. You've pretty much finished. You'll get paid 15,000 UEC, and that's a really, really solid amount of money for a new player to start with. They can buy a couple of components, they can buy a little bit of gear. If they want to get into trade, they can buy a little bit of SCU of stuff. But there's one more thing I would love to see them add here right at the end, just before you get paid, and that's swapping your medical terminals. Once again, this is a thing that is really, really important in the game, because setting your respawn is huge. I mean, you're changing where you're going to respawn after you die. Everyone does it every time they land somewhere. So maybe just a really quick thing of, you can go to the hospital here. Hey, look, you've got the regenerations point here, and you can, if you want, set your spawn here. They just need to tell us that. And then I think that's a perfect place to finish the mission off. Overall, for the tutorial section, I am a pretty big fan of the changes. But it is kind of like what they are saying. It is a version 0.5. These are the incredible basics. We do need a little bit more in depth about some other things. Like, we need to know ship combat, mining, salvaging, cargo deliveries, bounty missions, bunker missions. And I'm definitely missing some, but there's a lot of things that this game needs to teach you that also have basic elements. Like, I would love to see them add into the new player experience an option to rent a prospector or a vulture, and then go through some incredibly basic elements of that feature. So that's what I'd like to see them do ahead. But there's also some other things that they've added. So you would have noticed that there's a couple of extra hints on the right side. Some of them are control hints, just letting you know, hey, you can press E to do this, you can press control to do this. Whereas other things are contextual hints. So when you're in a hospital, it'll come up with a bit of information about hospitals. When you die and respawn, it'll come up with a little bit of information about respawning. A lot of these were handled by the old hint system, which you would have noticed at the bottom of the screen, but it's way better now. It's in a more prominent place. Still might not be the best location. I've seen people advocating for maybe put it at the top, sort of top middle of the screen, might be a little bit better, but it is certainly infinitely better than the old system. I don't know if we've gotten confirmation, but it feels like this system is now handled by building blocks. So that's the new player experience in 3.19. I'm hoping now we're going to see a higher conversion rate of players after they have their first hour of gameplay, because really that is a kill-off for most players. Unfortunately, this patch is coming out with Invictus, and in the past, Invictus has been a very buggy time for the game because there's just so many people playing at once. So it could both be the best patch for new players and the worst patch for new players. We're just gonna have to find out when we get to it next week. If you liked the video, make sure to give it a like, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to know every time I post a video. Also, come watch me over at twitch.tv/Croncierge. Right now, I've got a 400i giveaway that's gonna be ending in a couple of days, so it's your last chance to sign up for that one. What's your opinions on the new experience? Let me know in the comments below. That's it from me, guys. Have a good one. I'll see you soon. Once again, they're both not really thingy. When does it start? Next weekend. Oh, here we go. Oh, God. That was pretty funny. All right, so we've got the Hercules and the Ares in the main room for the start. Let's go into the other halls.